Last week, the United States military destroyed a small boat suspected of smuggling drugs in the Caribbean Sea. All 11 people on board were killed. President Trump has labeled drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Vice President Vance called killing cartel members the best use of our military. And it appears the administration is gearing up for more such actions against the cartels. So, Anirban, should the military be used in this sort of attempt to stop drug smuggling?
So on the face of it, it should be, I would say no, it violates international law and perhaps even US law. But, you know, post 9/11, when we passed overwhelmingly, except with one vote, we passed the authorization of the use of military force, which says that the president can use all necessary and appropriate force against nations in order to prevent any future acts of international terrorism against the United States. I'm not reading the whole thing. Basically giving the president a carte blanche in using power to preemptively kind of go after people who they think are detrimental to the security of the United States. Now, if the cartel members can be construed as a terrorist organization, then the Trump administration can veer this towards the AUMF and use it. And furthermore, I think Republican Dan Crenshaw from Texas in 2023 had introduced a resolution. It didn't pass yet. It's called the AUMF cartel, which gives the same powers to the president to not just go after terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, but also cartels. But that has not passed as a resolution. So I'm not sure. Trump might be walking a very thin legal line here, but we will see what happens.
Well, in terms of international law, so you're saying that domestically it's not clear, but internationally, in terms of international law, it was a boat in international waters.
It was, yeah.
And this isn't a nation state, right? These cartels are not, they're not confined to one nation. They're involved civilians, they're non-state actors, and they're not organized for political purposes. When you use the word terrorists use violence for political ends. Now, there might be drug smugglers, there are terrorists who use illicit ways of raising money, but people who are smuggling drugs are doing it for commercial purposes, whether we agree with that particular enterprise or not. It's a, quote, business enterprise, and an illegal one at that, but not political. And so he merges this kind of concept that these are political actors, and therefore there's some kind of additional justification apparently for doing so. And so I think this is a really dangerous situation, and it's, there's no due process. We don't even know if the people on the boat were actual drug smugglers. 11 people just lost their lives with zero due process. Typically the way this is handled is the Coast Guard goes in there. If they suspect something, they stop the vessel, they board it, they detain people for prosecution and then present evidence. I mean, so far we have zero evidence that that these were even members of a cartel, let alone sort of dangerously about to attack or land on U.S. soil. So I think that that's a very dangerous precedent.
So the president clearly, Tara, wanted to send a message to drug cartels, and it seems that would be a pretty strong message and probably received.
Probably received. The issue here is, as Sarah pointed out, is that we don't know that the people on that boat were part of a drug cartel. So if they are part of a drug cartel, then the message is strong and has been received. If they just they could be 11 people who, were maybe taking an opportunity to sell drugs, or they might just have been 11 people who were selling something else illicitly. We don't have any proof yet, so it's sort of hard to determine the impact of the message if we don't know if the people involved were part of the people we wanted to get the message.
But even if they were, go back to my original question, is that the appropriate use of the United States military? I
would argue that it is not. I think there is international precedent, as Sarah pointed out, for how we typically have dealt with these issues. There was no proof presented in the beginning of this. There was no interaction with the Venezuelan government, and I know our relations with the Venezuelan government are not exactly good relations, but typically in an international situation where the issue is not an issue of imminent danger, you notify the other government that that you're at least concerned about this issue and you're going after these people. There was none of that, so that sort of international precedent was violated. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think it dilutes the international norm of not being attacking other, in international waters with your own military. Tomorrow, say, other countries, Russia or Israel or, European countries might say, okay, a boat full of refugees off the coast of Mediterranean might be some terrorist threat to me, so I'm just going to bomb them, right? So that just liquidates the international norm and laws that we have in place for a stable international order, that you don't strike without war on a foreign water.
Well, one thing I wonder about here, if this is questionable legally in terms of authorization, because as you pointed out, the authorization, other attacks have been against, Al-Qaeda, for instance, where through that 2001 authorization. Where is the military has lawyers, and they offer counsel to whether you can do something. So what's happened to that legal process? I don't know if
well,
anybody...
I guess for me, some of the broader issue here is, there was a lot of talk when Trump got reelected that, our institutions could hold and put boundaries and guardrails. And some people even talked about the military as being one of those, right? That military people might not follow orders that are blatantly unconstitutional or against international law. And I think we can't count on that, clearly. Our institutions are failing us, except for the only ones I see really putting any boundaries is the lower courts. But I don't think the military is going to save us in this case, right? They follow orders, and who's at the top right now of our military establishment is all Trump loyalists and lackeys.